Welcome, everyone. Today's webinar will begin shortly, but as we get started this morning, I'd like to first introduce Justin from the Interpreters Cooperative in Madison. He has some important information for us this morning on accessing simultaneous interpretation. Justin?
Hi, everyone. My name is Justin. I'm your interpreter for today. I'm just going to give some quick guidelines in French and English so that you know how to use the interpretation function. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Mon nom c'est Justin. Je vais vous donner quelques instructions pour vous indiquer comment utiliser la fonction d'interprétation simultanée afin de recevoir la session d'aujourd'hui dans la langue de votre choix. So to use the interpretation function, at the bottom of your screen, once I'm done speaking, there will be a globe icon. If you click on the globe icon, you will be able to select the language of your choice. Donc, pour utiliser la fonction d'interprétation, vous allez pouvoir, une fois que j'ai terminé de parler, vous allez pouvoir cliquer sur l'icône circulaire, ça ressemble à un globe ou une planète, et une fois que vous avez cliqué en bas de votre écran sur cette icône, vous allez pouvoir choisir la langue de votre choix. Thank you very much. Back over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much. Oops. It would help if I would turn my video on. Thank you so much, Justin. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from today. Welcome to today's webinar. We are celebrating the impact and legacy of NCBA CLUSA's USAID-funded Feed the Future activity in Senegal called Kawolor. My name is Liz, and I'm here to run through a few housekeeping items before we get started. So first off, thank you for joining us. We have an hour together this morning, and we have a very packed hour, but we are keeping 15 or so minutes reserved for audience Q&A at the end. So please ask questions throughout the webinar. As you have questions for our panelists, type them into the chat box. You can also use the Q&A feature. Our team is going to be monitoring that conversation, and we'll do our best to get to as many of your questions as possible. This webinar is being recorded, so you'll have an opportunity to share it with your networks afterward. Look for that recording in your inbox tomorrow, along with a French translation of today's presentation. In a few minutes, we will be hearing from Carl Rosenberg, our Chief of Party for the Kawolor project. But to get us started this morning, I'm going to first hand things off to Carrie Teiken with USAID Senegal, where she serves as Deputy Director for the Office of Economic Growth. Carrie, welcome.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth, and thank you so much for joining us today. As Elizabeth mentioned, my name is Carrie Teiken, and I'm the Economic Growth Deputy Office Director at the USAID Mission in Senegal. And it's my great pleasure to be with you today to celebrate the accomplishments of the Feed the Future Senegal Kawolor project and to recognize the impact of USAID's work to reduce malnutrition, food insecurity, and poverty. So as a Feed the Future target country and nutrition priority country, USAID has invested funds in several integrated nutrition agriculture projects in Senegal, addressing rural economic development in all dimensions: food security, economic growth, employment, nutrition, access to finance, capacity building, empowerment, and organization of population at the local level. And Kawolor has been a key part of our Feed the Future programming in Senegal by integrating nutrition and agriculture to reduce poverty and combat malnutrition, and also by supporting the government of Senegal's investments in agriculture. So as Elizabeth mentioned, yesterday marked the closeout of Kawolor's 5-year multi-sectoral agriculture nutrition program in Senegal. And during promoting local leadership and ownership of interventions, and enabling communities to take charge of their own food security. So we're going to start today's webinar with a presentation from Kawolor's Chief of Party, Carl Rosenberg, and then we'll have the Deputy Chief of Party, Fatou Kene Diop Sall, speak and also the Senior Technical Advisor, POPSEN. So following the webinar, as Elizabeth also mentioned, we'll have time for some questions, a Q&A session. So once again, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Feed the Future Senegal Kawolor Designing for Nutritional Impact webinar. And now I will hand it over to Carl. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Carrie. And I hope you can all see me. Do you see me?
We do.
Am I up? Okay, you do. Great, fantastic. Well, welcome. As Carrie mentioned, we're about to learn much more about Kawolor. For those of you that are somewhat familiar, for those of you that don't know anything about what we've done, let's start with the name Kawolor. Kawolor is a Jola word that means growth, abundance. Jola is a language in the south of the country, one of the areas in which we worked. Slide. Here is just a presentation of Feed the Future partners with the US government. There's 11, USAID principally, but there's 10 other government agencies that are involved in implementing Feed the Future programming. Slide. What we worked on in Kawolor, the fundamental piece, was strengthening nutrition-led agriculture. And throughout the presentation, you're going to hear this term, nutrition-led agriculture, which is really our food systems approach we've used on Kawolor, and prior to that on the Feed the Future Senegal Yajende project. Feed the Future are strengthening nutrition-led agriculture through entrepreneurship creates sustainable food systems addressing food insecurity and nutritional deficiencies. Slide. To speak a little bit to the project, it's been a 5-year project. As Carrie mentioned, it ended yesterday, started in November 2017, funded by USAID Senegal. We work in the domains of agriculture and nutrition, and we worked in 8 regions of the country: Fatick, Kaffrine, Kaolack in the center, Matam and Saint Louis in the north of Senegal, Kolda, Sédhiou, and Ziguinchor in the south. Of those 8 regions, we worked in 19 departments, 99 communes. And I want to point out the robust team that ran this project. Funded by USAID, of course, we are NCBA CLUSA, the prime of the project, but we also worked with the excellent organizations Helen Keller International, Shaladia Associates, and John Snow Incorporated. Slide. To speak to the scale of impact we were able to achieve over the course of the 5 years, Kawolor worked in 2,567 villages in our 99 communes in which we worked. And so this represented 2/3 of the villages in those communes. We touched 163,825 households. And if you estimate roughly 10 people per household in Senegal, that's over 1.6 million people. We touched 167,048 women who were impacted by the Kawolor nutrition interventions. 95,886 of these women were, through the course of the project, lactating at some point, so we were able to work on exclusive breastfeeding. We worked on interventions for children under 2, 95,198, and along with those under 2s, children under 5, 204,389. Here is a map of where we worked in the country, so you can see in the north, in the center, and in the south. The green demarcates first generation communes. These are the original communes we worked with in FY 2018, 2019, 2020. The orange is for second generation communes, 47. And these were in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Slide. Now I'd like to turn the presentation to POPSEN, Senior Technical Advisor. He's going to talk about the nutrition-led agriculture food systems approach. Take it away, Pop.
Thank you very much, Carl. I'm going to take the next 5 to 10 minutes to go through the nutrition-led agriculture concept by talking about the what and the how, and also who is involved in nutrition-led agriculture. I may use often NLA as an acronym to let you know that it's all about diverse, healthy, and nutritious food. And for that matter, we want to ensure that activities of all producers, processors, wholesalers, traders, and sellers involved in the food system benefit from their activities. Our idea is that when they make money, they will stay in the food system. They will keep the business going. So it's a bit different approach from humanitarian approach to nutrition. This is more a kind of a business approach to nutrition. And that's the reason why we want to make sure that the profitability of the activities will be attracting increasingly private sector operators so that they can participate into the food system.
I think we should advance slides.
Yeah, move the slide, please. Finally, we want to ensure that the healthy, nutritious food are integrated into existing market. We don't want to create new markets. What we do, like when we promote new crops, like when we introduce the biofortified millet, we integrate it into existing market. Slide, please. Now, how do we achieve the objective? How do we make NLA operational? We do it first by strengthening the food system, by fostering and advancing entrepreneurship across all the actors in the food chain. That means that the CBOs that people find in the community-based organization that they call producer organization, processing units, and local distributors all are resolutely entrepreneurial, fully business oriented. That again, I get back to the concept of business oriented approach to nutrition. The second point is that we know the major deficiencies in Senegal. We know that it's vitamin A, it's iron, it's zinc and iodine, and the rates are pretty high. When we started the program back to Yagende in 2011, it was for the vitamin A close to 25% for the children, 55% for iron. Zinc was 50% and iron was 54%. We kept that in our mind and focused some of our intervention to address the deficiency by, for example, working around selective crops, and that is the link with the innovative technology that is the following bullet. Innovative technology meaning ag technologies like biofortification. We brought a lot of crops that was biofortified. So using those technologies, we use also micropropagation in vitro, climate smart practices, and food technologies, both devices and processes. So this is the reason why the very first thing that we did is sign a convention to collaborate with research centers, both nationally and internationally. The last point on the how we operate is we work through local institutions as co-pillar, and these institutions are on the next slide, please. Who are those institutions? First and foremost, the group that we call Empowered Women. That's our translation for the Bogale group, but it could be also Proud Woman, because the concept of Debogale is a traditional one. It's very powerful. So those groups, this group of empowered women work around nutrition and livelihood activities, and that is definitely the heart of NLA, the heart of nutrition-led agriculture. And some colleagues put it, in some other banners, they were claiming that the future of Senegal depends on how the Debogale feed themselves and feed their children. And it's very profound, and there was a lot of good discussion around this. The second group of actors that we work with in the NLA process, in fact, the second and the third bullet should be all the same. They are agro-enterprise. The first group, the first one is private sector firm, producer organization, and cooperative that I talked about earlier, who work in production, processing, and distribution. There is also the cultivar agent. We'll talk about cultivar later. They are local and they are appointed by their own communities to provide technical assistance and information and services and support to whoever needed in the community to produce healthy and nutritious food. The last group that we work with in the NLA process is called the Citizen Working Group. It's some groups of volunteers, network of citizen groups that are at the village and local level, and that have been extremely helpful to the NLA process in the community. A good example is that, like we had the experience in one of the regions that the rain was extremely late, and the citizen working group took the initiative to contact the local government authorities to alert them, and then task the cultivar agents to hurry up and link up with the National Research Center and to buy and bring the relevant crop that was the short cycle cereals, and that's how they saved the season. One activity of the citizen working is also to support women group to access land and have official title for the land. These groups are very, 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 very active and have been very supportive to our activities in the NLA process. Next slide, please. On that next slide, you can see the interactions that happen between those four organizations. And you can see that, you know, they have a very strong connection between themselves. And you can also see the functions, like the Bogale groups do a lot of education for behavior change. The cultivar groups, they do a lot of supplying information and whatever people need. And the citizen working group support and coordination. So, but you should see the entire slide as like representing a system, because they work together. If you take them independently, you may lose the benefit of having the interaction among themselves. Next slide, please. Now the Debogale groups, more detail on what they do. This slide focuses on the Debogale activities, starting with communication for social behavior change, way down to the production and marketing of nutritious food, nutritious flour. All are very important, but asset building, which is the third bullet, to me is the key to allow women access land, tools, animals, and even knowledge. This asset building, to me, is the way to economic empowerment for the women. But all the bullets are important, all of them. So they do a lot of, the gardening one is really one of the key elements of nutrition-led agriculture, allowing women to garden, acquire the skills and to do gardening that allow people to get the nutritious food in the village, but also the selling the surplus in the markets. The last slide please, shows cultivar that I talked earlier. Cultivar is a social franchise that have been incubated by Kawolor, but now on its own. It started in May 2016. Cultivar provides support to more than 700 active agents and affiliated entities. So it's a pretty dense, network of franchisees throughout the zone of intervention. The franchisees, meaning the agent, follow the norm, the work norms and culture, the code of conduct, the line of cultivar, as well as speaking professional dress code. You can see the gentleman has this code, this dress that all the cultivar agents have, both women and men. There is about 55% women among the 700 active agents of cultivar. Sometimes people may think that they are kind of agro dealers. There is a big difference, because we say that what they do is supply people with solution being the product, the service, and the information, because they are right there in the village. The agro dealers tend to just work around the product, they deliver the product, and that's the end of the business. But the cultivator agents are living in the villages so that they can make sure that what they provided to the people on the ground is more kind of a solution than just a product. And they have also a flourishing business. As you can see, there are the number of the sales that they made within the Kawolor clients, but they do also a lot of sales, you know, in other communities. So it's a pretty good business for them. It's also a pretty good service and product to the communities. You now may know a bit about NLA, how it operates, and who is involved in it. My colleague Fatikine Job will be now leading you through what Kawolor have achieved throughout NLA. Fatou, thank
you. Now, let's share some achievements of Feed the Future Senegal Kawolor after 5 years implementation of NLA approach in 1990 communes in Senegal. Slide, please. The project really has achievements in increasing availability of nutritious and safe food, in increasing household and private sector revenue, extra. But here in this presentation, we'll focus on nutrition's results. We'll talk about improvement of consumption of diverse, healthy and nutritious food among women and children through 3 indicators. The first one is about women on a diet with minimal diversity. The second one about children aged 6-23 months with a minimum acceptable diet. And the last one about exclusive breastfeeding for children less than 5 months age. You see that in 2018, at the beginning of the project, the baseline indicated that less than 20 women in Kawolor zone are living on a diet with minimal acceptable, minimal diversity. But at the end line this year, the end line shows that we almost have all the women with minimal diversity on the jet with more than 96%. Also, the second indicator about minimum acceptable diet for children, which was very low, was significantly improved at the end of the project. So from 3.8, we went to 23, more than 23% children. And same for the best breastfeeding, exclusive best breastfeeding. And there also, we increased that of almost 40 points. And you can say that all this was possible because Kawolor, while working on availability of nutritious products in the market, also worked a lot. We did many training with farmers, with the Debogale groups. So capacity building was very important for us. So to allow people to have knowledge, to have education for women, for good practices. Also, the project worked a lot in increasing household revenue and improving women's ability to make decisions. Slide, please. My second slide is an example of scaling up nutrition-led agriculture approach in Kolda in South Senegal. Here we can see that the project role in the process, or the project role in NLA in general, is coaching and facilitation. So after identifying the food system actors, we support them to develop and implement capacity building plans. So after having those plans, we facilitate for them access to finance, access to technology, services, etc. And we also link them with research. So I think Papa talked about the importance of research in NLA. We link them with Senegalese institutes like ISRA, ITIA, ESRA, and with government institutions like the national institutions for consular like ANCAR and private sector. So in this line, the example is about some actors, producers, distributors, and processors. And in the bottom or in the beginning of the line, we have producers, and we'll talk mainly about Yankankunda Cooperative. So it's one of the 46 Papa was talking about community-based organizations. So we had 46 big organizations Kawolor worked with that are really agro enterprises working on production. And Yankankunda is focused on, or is specialized in Obatampa maize. So they are producing seeds, they do seed multiplication, but they also do production for consumption. Then after supporting them to improve the yield and to better work with their members to help them to scale up that crop, we link them with distributors. Here we can give the example of some distributors like SEDAP. SEDAP is a national distributor here in Senegal, and they sell seeds all over the country, and also maize for consumption. So that allow their product so to reach people out of the area. We also link them with cultivar agents so that household and Debogale group can be provided with the Obatampa maize, which is a quality protein maize. So very good quality of maize. And after linking them with those, we also have processors. And here we'll give the example of one of Yankankunda's partners named Saint-Marc. So Saint-Marc is a company that is doing processing and production of blended flour. So from Obatampa maize and other crops like moringa. And Saint-Marc did in 3 years, so 100,000 kilograms of blended flour to feed more than 6,000 children in their area. And they also generate $200,000. After doing that, or while doing that, they also giving support to the Bogale group and working with units for rehabilitation and children education. So they do a lot to improve nutrition in their area. Slightly now to know more or for more about Saint-Marc, we propose you right after this presentation a short video about them. especially about one of them named Mimi Jeju in Senegal. So I'll now let Carl talk about impact for the end of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatou Kiné. Hopefully you guys see me and hear me. Slide, please. To speak of the impacts of the project, which is really the key to what we've been able to achieve, overall sales for Kawolor producers of $53 million through the course of the project. And of that 53 million, affiliated agribusinesses of $12.182 million. It's key to understand that when we talk about these producers, they include the double galley groups. I've seen questions about, can people afford the nutritious food? Well, often the double galley groups are growing much of their own food, and they're selling some, and they're gaining impact in terms of household income with those sales. 168,000 metric tons of horticulture production. This is once again largely and predominantly by these double galley groups in either micro gardens or in common gardens that they hold together. 60% of the commune's private sector households investment matched 40% of Kawolor funds to provide water. And in Senegal, in much of these arid regions, water is a key limiting factor that provided drinking water to 44,317 people and agricultural production water for 15,137 producers. And this was a key intervention. The key there is that 60% of the financing of these water interventions came from the communities and people that would benefit from having this water. Slide. And achieving sustainable impacts, household impacts. There were 7,055 of these double galley groups. Now, these double galley groups are typically between 20 and 30 women. And so 180,000 women participated in double galley groups, a little bit more than that. Of this 180,453, 111,277 double galley group members were involved in savings for investment groups. Now, these groups came together and saved money, and the money saved is $32,700,000, of which $20,600,000 was loaned to members for different activities. And these would be gardening, these would be chicken coops, and these would be other typically income generating activities. The groups come together and decide whether the project that a member would like to do is worthwhile, and then they make the loan. A key point here, and I saw questions about people's ability to afford the nutritious food. Household incomes increased starting in 2018, starting at $1,570. And at the end of the project, $2,709 on average, 72.5% increase. And this is when you consider COVID was through this whole period. So even with the impacts of COVID, revenue was still increased during 2020 and 2021. Slide. And then in terms of institutional stability, we're leaving behind a dense network of these cultivar agents that were mentioned. They will continue to provide, I saw a question about whether cultivar is a nonprofit. It's not a nonprofit. All the cultivar members are agents. They're selling these inputs to individuals that otherwise couldn't access them, sometimes at the village level. And so these needed input services and information go to local producers, higher quantity and quality of fruits, vegetables, grains. Tubers are available to consumers on local regional markets. And this all results in an increase in income for producers and better nutrition for consumers. In terms of scaling up the double galley approach, these 7,000 plus double galley groups, many of them have joined into local or regional unions or federations of double galley groups. That the reason that they have done this is to expand and support member activities and sometimes economic activities and exchanges between these groups. And on the Senegal level, the National Council for Development and for Nutrition, which is known as CNDN, for Senegal savvy folks, it used to be the CLM, have committed to and started implementing and developing double galley groups approach, starting in the north of the country, but intending to go to other areas as well. The nutrition-led agriculture institutions continue to provide market-based solutions through more transactions between small producers, local agribusinesses. This is all what we leave behind. Local private sector is growing with better quality products distributed to supermarkets, other rural and urban distributors. Kawolor horticulture clients continue to work with another Feed the Future Senegal project activity, which is Nafore Wasaji, run by Connexus Corporation. They're working with the Syngenta Foundation, and we work with the Syngenta Foundation to develop and link producers to farmers hubs in the country, where they can aggregate and improve quality and then aggregate their products, largely vegetables, for marketing. Slide, please. And finally, just to go through the real key here, is that Kawolor's nutrition-led agriculture approach has successfully increased access to diverse, safe, and nutritious food in Senegal. The project has been able to scale its interventions to the Feed the Future zone of influence by encouraging entrepreneurship market entry of its clients. And the fact that people make a profit through their endeavors ensures a continuation of activities and sustainability of impacts. Slide, please. So thank you very much for your attention. We've seen your questions and we're looking to answer them. Prior to that, though, let's take 4 minutes to look at this video and look at Mimi Jeju of Sanmart company, a grain processor, and other activities that Mimi carries out. Go ahead with the film, please. Thank you. Slide and film.
Hello, everyone. We're waiting for the film to start running. So while we are waiting, perhaps we can look at some of the chat messages. There's also some messages in the Q&A. And one of the questions that came up, I can give this one to Carl. What do you mean by women access for land? Is it ownership or rental?
Yeah, this is a key question. Ownership of land obviously is a long-term process, and like in lots of contexts in Africa, women's ownership to land is a complex process. Oftentimes, what we looked at or what we saw in the implementation of Kawolor is use of land, and sometimes the use of land was extended to 20 years. As in the form of something akin to a lease, but ownership of land is something that is rarer to manage, and it's something that we're still working on with the citizen working groups. But it's largely leased land, and there's a term to the lease, but quite often the term is quite long, up to 20 years.
Yeah, there are instances where it was 50 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to build on that, we had the process that we called the BDL, bioreclamation or degraded land, that where lands were abandoned by some household then the citizen working group will be going to the village chief and have discussion in such a way that that land will be allocated to the women. And there are processes that we use in both Yajende and Kawolor to restore the land, helping the woman to plant relevant crops and restore the land. And if the land become again usable, what they did is to get a proper title to the woman. There are places where they got a proper property title from the local government. It happened in some places.
Yeah. All right.
I want to answer to the question about the biofortified crops, the source of biofortified crops. I said in my presentation that the very first thing that we did in Yajende and Kawolor was to sign conventions with research centers. So all the biofortified crops, we obtained them through the research centers, both international and national. We had, from ICRISAT men, both from India and Niger. They have a center in Niger at Sadore, and we had a very, very good collaboration with ICRISAT in Niger. We also had some variety of orange flesh sweet potatoes from INERA, which is the National Research Center from Burkina Faso. And we worked a lot with ISRA, which is the Senegal institution. We also got some product from the International Center of Potatoes, as well as Harvest Plus. So that answered that question. There is also a question about the citizen working group. Yeah, they are volunteers, and they have a very strong motivation, because what make the citizen working group very effective is they have a very strong link with the local government. They are partners. We try as much as possible to make them able to work together with the local government and not oppose the local government, so that they can work together and answer the questions from the citizenry. And that is the reason why they have been very successful in this land issue, because they sit at the table with the local government, and some local government in the communes, they call the citizen worker the technical arm of the local government. So the collaboration is very strong, and they were able to sort out a lot of issues because of that very good collaboration.
I think one thing to add, and then apparently the film is ready, so we'll be able to go straight to the film. But one thing to add on the citizen working groups, it's not a 40-hour-a-week obligation. They come together sometimes once a week. Some members come once or twice a month. A few core members are much more engaged, but almost everyone in the citizen working group would have another income generating activity. That's not their full-time occupation. So I think the film is ready. Let's go ahead and give it another shot. Go ahead, Isabel, with the film. Thank you.
I am Mimi Jejo, as well known as Mrs. in my school. Mrs. is my best name. Okay, everywhere you can hear Mrs., Mrs., Mrs. Quand on a essayé à faire la farine composée avec le maïs Obatampa, on est allé sur le terrain pour voir un peu l'impact. Quand on est arrivé sur le terrain, les acteurs qui étaient là-bas nous ont dit qu'ils ont senti vraiment une différence. Parce qu'auparavant, ils prenaient du temps pour récupérer les enfants. Mais avec nous, ça va tellement vite ça va très vite. Et on leur a dit, donc désormais, si vous voulez vraiment la santé, venez acheter de la farine composée avec du maïs obatampa parce que c'est riche en protéines de qualité. Voilà, c'est la seule ordonnance efficace. Je savais comment faire pour calculer ce que j'ai dépensé et savoir tirer aussi des bénéfices. Mais auparavant, je n'avais pas ces notions. Acheter, je consomme, bon, le reste, ce n'est pas mon problème. Je me suis battue, je me suis imposée pour leur dire, si vous voulez qu'on continue l'activité, il faut assurer d'abord l'approvisionnement, avoir une sécurité financière, c'est-à-dire garder un peu. Et maintenant, le surplus, on survient aux besoins primaires et comprendre que ce n'est pas aujourd'hui qu'on va se remplir les poches. Il faut qu'on se serre la ceinture. Alors, elles ont accepté. On transforme les produits, mais ce qu'on reçoit nous a transformés, nous, en tant que femmes, positivement. Oui, c'est la plupart des femmes qui s'occupent de l'éducation des enfants, qui paient la scolarité, ils font tout. Parce que la plupart d'entre elles, les maris ne travaillent plus ou bien sont à la retraite. Et aujourd'hui, donc, les familles sont très à l'aise. Parce que le peu que maman amène, c'est pour tout le monde. Et tout le monde est heureux. L'activité que je mène d'élevage est très rentable parce que ça m'a beaucoup aidé dans l'achat du terrain et de la construction de la maison là où nous sommes.
Madame Diaté est une femme leader. Parce que je me rappelle quand je suis venu en 2011-2012, je l'avais déjà trouvé à organiser à elle seule, avec des dépenses exorbitantes à elle seule, pour quand même honorer la journée du 8 mars à Koukandé.
It's a great day for me, and I don't have the real word to thank Kawolor and Cultivar because they allowed me to improve myself in my home, in my family, at school, everywhere. And in my factory, because life is good health. Good health comes from the good food. And the women in Saint Mark are ready to make the good food for all the world.
All right, thank you very much for your attention during the film. You want to take it back from me, Carrie, and we'll look at some more questions.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to start with some of the questions that are in the chat box and move to the Q&A. Feel free to put some more in there as we move along. One of the questions in the chat box was, how did the nutrition-led agriculture institutions adapt to COVID-19? Were there any lessons learned?
Yeah, I think, and thank you for that question. I think one of the things that we were able to do more quickly than had we not had these institutions was respond to some of the immediate needs, which were for hand washing stations, soaps, masks, and all these types of tools. And how this worked with the citizen working groups became hubs for their individual communes. And the Double Galley groups played a really active role in the distribution. We did get some additional funding from USAID and support for this during the COVID period. And we were quickly able to use that funding to move these products into the interior and get them to the communities. And the Double Galley groups were key to this, the citizen working groups, and Cultivar was also key to this, because Cultivar moved its product line from a largely agricultural product line to a product line that sustained soaps and access to soaps and all the other things that one needed during COVID. The other thing we were able to do very quickly in adapting to COVID was we already had a connectivity to a lot of these groups. We used WhatsApp already with these groups, and these groups use the WhatsApp platform with each other. And so people were able to go remote very quickly. So that's kind of how we adapted to COVID.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Another question in the chat box is, how do they pay the loans back? I'm assuming this is the double golly groups.
That's right.
So if you could.
Yeah, the double galley groups, the loans are all internal. So if you're talking about a savings for investment box that's between 25 to 30 women, they have time by which they're to pay back the loans. The loans would typically be $20, $50, $100 at most. These are not large loans. And so they have a time period with which to pay back with a very small interest rate, maybe at 5% over the course of 6 months to pay back the loan. Yeah, that's how they paid them back. They paid them back. The reason it was effective too was that they were paying back the loan to the group in which they're a member, in which it's in their community. So they're really bound to find a way to pay back the loan to the other members.
Okay. Another question that we have in the chat is, how were policymakers involved in the project for sustainability purposes?
Yeah, I'll let my colleagues also help with this, but we work very closely with the government of Senegal. We work with ministries, we work with mayor's offices, we work with institutions within the government. So the local level representatives of the Ministry of Agriculture, of Livestock, of Health. And then we worked with regional development groups within the country that work on rural development. And so everything we did in combination with them so that they were partners to this. Maybe you can speak a little bit to the, one of you guys can add a little bit to the partnership with the government of Senegal and Senegalese actors.
Yes, I think one of the partnership that we should highlight is the close work that we do with the CNDN, which is the National Council for Nutrition Development. And that is the coordinating mechanism in the, for nutrition in the country. Because of the tie that we have with that organization, we were able to work very closely and input the policy making around nutrition. There is also the other institution that is the National Council for Food Security. That was also a very close partner to the Kawolor project, and those two institutions have been key in terms of making sure that whatever we learn in the Kawolor project was impacting the policies that we're putting before the government.
Forgot to unmute myself there. Thank you both. Another question I see in the chat is, are small ruminants and poultry projects successful? And is there any fish production activities in Kawolor?
There were not fish production activities, and the poultry and small ruminant was very, very, very successful in terms of we use the heifer process that they call pass on the gift, and that has been that was one of the most successful projects in Kawolor, both in Kawolor and the agenda. And it's still going on. It's still going on. The private sector is supporting it. Women are raising their own resources through savings to buy the ruminants and then to pass it on to others. And it's still going. It's very, very, very simple, both poultry and small ruminants.
Yeah, just to add, the poultry piece in particular is a little easier to start. It's a little less financially burdensome. And so the poultry has been very successful as a savings for investment activity within the double galley groups. Over.
Okay, in the Q&A, I see, where were the biofortified crops sourced from? Anyone could take that question.
Yeah, I talked a bit about that earlier. We got those from research centers that was in the sub-region, like Ikriza, but that is based in Sadore in Niger, but also in National Research Center in Burkina Faso, even in Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso and Senegal, as well as large research organization like Harvest Plus and ICP, which is the Intercenter of potatoes.
And then another one in the Q&A, and this, I'm not sure if this came in before you were speaking, Carl. I think you've addressed this one, but is Cultivar non-profit? And how does Cultivar receive its funding? Is it self-sustaining?
Yeah, Cultivar, we helped to set up Cultivar. Cultivar came about in 2016, as we mentioned in the project. And it came from the need of existing agents that we helped to develop during the Agenda project to continue to have a brand from which they could stand behind and be their brand, access inputs at a cheaper rate because they can buy the inputs on aggregate, receive training, business training, training in the techniques, and then often having larger agents be kind of hubs to groups of smaller agents. So they might buy large stocks of products and then sell them at a rate that's still profitable to them, that those agents can then sell in the communities. It's all for profit. There's no nonprofit aspect to it. Cultivar continues to operate, as we mentioned at the end of the project, 750 members throughout the country. It continues to operate, and but the fact of the matter is Cultivar agents who are profitable continue. Cultivar agents who aren't as profitable don't continue. So it's like any other business, the ones that really make it are the ones that are able to manage their business and plan accordingly and be profitable. But that there is a central entity, the Agenda Cooperative, the Agenda Senegal Cooperative, that now is the parent organization that runs Cultivar. So their members are members of the cooperative and Cultivar agents. You want to speak a little bit to Cultivar, Fatou Kiné? Fatou Kiné was the first director of Cultivar when we started in 2016. Go ahead, Fatou.
Okay, thank you, Carl. I think we don't have many time left, but just to add that it's a profit one, it's not non-profit, and even Cultivar, I don't talk about agents, but even Cultivar as a franchise is also working, have a business plan, and is doing activities. And they also propose their services to other institutions in training and other activities. So it's a profit one, it's not non-profit. Thank you.
Yeah, Fatou, maybe you can answer the question about, il y a deux questions en français sur la question des conventions avec les institutions de financement pour faciliter l'accès aux
j'avais répondu rapidement sur le chat pour dire que oui, effectivement, nous signons des conventions avec les institutions financières, mais je tiens à préciser que c'est sans engagement financier. Donc, nous ne mettons pas de garantie ni quoi que ce soit au niveau des banques. Nous faisons juste la facilitation, nous signons des conventions et nous appuyons les organisations à réussir leur activité de sorte qu'ils puissent honorer leur crédit et payer comme il se doit.
Et ça inclut aussi bien les banques commerciales que
Oui.
les banques privées. Tu peux citer par exemple 2 ou 3 banques avec qui on a des conventions?
Oui, au Sénégal, nous avons beaucoup travaillé avec UMSEC, nous avons travaillé avec la Banque agricole. Je crois que dans le cadre de Kawolor, la Banque agricole était le partenaire majeur. Nous avons aussi travaillé avec des institutions de microfinance, donc que ce soit PAMECAS, Microcred, le Crédit Mutuel du Sénégal, etc. Donc, ce sont des structures avec qui nous avons travaillé au Sénégal. Merci.
Okay, I think we're at time now. So I will hand it back over to Elizabeth, I suppose, if in case there's any final remarks on the.
I think the final remarks will be me, in fact.
Okay.
We see there's other questions that we didn't get to, and time was a bit limiting. But perhaps we can find a way to post answers to those questions that were printed here. We just want to say thank you to all of you who came together with us this hour to learn about Kawolor. We very much appreciate your time and your interest in the project. And yes, what we really tried to always keep in mind that we need a sustainable, scalable outcome to what we've done. And we feel confident that at the end of 5 years, we've reached most of our objective in that regard. So thank you very much for your attention, and we'll look for a way to respond to the other questions. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.